make sure that we are prepared in case we don't come
We're gonna let you go there, Danielle. The U.S. House has just gavelled in.
2H, Rule 2 of the Rules of the U.S. House of Representatives. The clerk received the following message from the Secretary of the Senate on April 8, 2011 at 11:35 p.m. that the Senate passed with amendment H.R. 1363. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Hawes, Clerk of the House.
Purpose of the gentleman from California rise.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that it be in order at any time to take from the Speaker's table the bill H.R. 1363 with a Senate amendment thereto, and to consider in the House, without intervention of any point of order, a motion offered by the Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations or his designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment, that the Senate amendment be considered as read, that the motion be debatable for 20 minutes, equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Appropriations, and that the previous question be considered as ordered on the motion to final adoption without intervening motion.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Gentleman is recognized under his reservation.
Will the gentleman yield?
Well, the gentleman has reserved the right to object. The gentleman controls the time with the Speaker.
I would like to enter into just a discussion. This only affects this bill tonight. Isn't this correct?
If the gentleman would yield.
Yes, I yield.
I thank my friend for yielding, and let me say that, yes, this only addresses the measure, the short-term continuing resolution that we are considering this evening.
And the only amendment to this is the $2 billion in cut. Is that correct?
If the gentleman would further yield, the gentleman is absolutely correct.
Or this would look a lot like the Dix amendment that was offered in the Rules Committee for a clean CR.
If the gentleman would yield, if the gentleman would yield, I would say that the groundwork that was laid earlier this week by my very good friend from Seattle has, I know, played an integral role in getting us to this very important point. And I thank my friend for yielding.
We could have done it a little earlier is all I'm saying, but I have no objection.
Gentleman withdraw his reservation.
I withdraw my reservation.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the order of the House of today, I call up H.R. 1363 with a Senate amendment thereto, and I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the title of the bill, designate the Senate amendment, and report the motion.
An act making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2011, and for other purposes. Senate amendment. Mr. Rogers of Kentucky moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 1363.
Pursuant to the order of the House today, the motion shall be debatable for 20 minutes, equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Appropriations. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers, and the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Dix, will each control 10 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, but the gentleman will suspend. The House will be in order. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.R. 1363.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we come here tonight just moments before the government is forced to close its doors with very good news. We have an agreement with the Senate and the White House to fund the government for the rest of the fiscal year while providing critical resources for our national defense. In addition, when this agreement is signed into law, we will have taken the unprecedented step of passing the largest non-defense spending cut in the history of the nation, tens of billions of dollars larger than any other non-defense reduction. This remarkable achievement is the result of hard-fought negotiations that required all sides to come together to find common ground. The American people need and deserve to have a functioning government, but they also deserve a government that spends its taxpayer dollars responsibly, a government that won't saddle their children and grandchildren with unsustainable and reckless debt. Our constituents have sent us the message that the standard tax and spend culture in Washington is no longer acceptable. It has been the goal of this new Republican majority to keep precious tax dollars where they are needed most, in the hands of businesses and individuals across the nation, so that they can create jobs and grow our economy. This agreement will mark the end of a budget process that should have been completed almost a year ago by the previous Congress. Yet sometimes the end result is worth the wait. And the unparalleled spending cuts in this bill will not only save the taxpayers tens of billions of dollars this year, but will allow Congress to continue the trend of reductions, to dig our nation out of our dangerous deficits and debt for years to come. Now that a broad agreement has been reached, my committee will work over the next few days to craft legislation to bring to the floor next week. While we continue to work, we must make responsible decisions to fund our troops and their families, keep the lights on in government, and continue to provide the services that Americans depend on every day. This temporary CR allows us to meet these needs by providing funding through next Friday, April 15th, while also making $2 billion in additional spending cuts to show the American people that we are serious about cutting spending wherever and whenever we can. Mr. Speaker, I guarantee the final legislation will rein in federal spending, and this CR keeps us on track to cut excessive federal spending as we continue to finalize a deal. We are determined to deliver to the American people a complete budget with historic levels of deep and real spending cuts, cuts that will keep our economy moving in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Washington.
I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield myself as much time as I may need.
Gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
First of all, I'd like to thank the President and the leaders in the House and Senate on both sides for their compromise and for averting a government shutdown. I think there was a major decision made tonight by both parties and by the administration to keep the government open. Now, that's what the American people sent us here to do. They sent us here to work out compromises, to be able to resolve issues, and to move forward. And I think this is an example of that. Now, this CR will run for 1 week to April 15th. It is basically a clean CR in the sense of there's no ideologically driven language. It has $2 billion in it. It cuts, but they're in the underlying agreement. And so I think this is acceptable. My understanding is that there are cuts in discretionary spending and in some of the mandatory accounts. And I am pleased that the leaders were able to reach this agreement. Now, we still have a lot of work to do. And I want to say to my chairman that I still look forward to working on the 2012 appropriation bills, and I hope that we can work and have an open process where we can bring these bills to subcommittee, full committee, and to the floor with open rules. And I would like to yield to my chairman just to make sure that we're still on that's the path we want to go in this year. We want to avoid what happened in 2006. Now, I reminded you, sometimes you forget a little bit, that when the Republicans lost in 2006, there were a number of unfinished appropriations bills, and we had to do an omnibus in 2007. We did a little faster, by the way. It didn't take quite as long. But we're glad that this agreement was reached, and I look forward to getting on with the work of the 2012 appropriations items.
Well, the gentleman,
Yeah, I yield to the chairman.
I really deeply appreciate the gentleman's reminding us again that he and I are determined to bring to the floor every single 12 of the 12 appropriations bills, complete our work in the House before the August recess.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will work hard to cooperate in order to do that. We'll try to keep a reasonable number of amendments on our side. I hope you can do that on your side. And I yield back the remainder of my time and ask for a vote.
The gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from
Mr.
Kentucky.
Speaker, I yield back our time.
Gentleman yields back his time. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to the order of the House of today, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion by the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers. As many as are in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman from
I
Kentucky.
ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those in favor of a recorded vote will rise to be counted. Sufficient number having arisen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members record their vote by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Well, adding or ending a day full of drama over the budget, really, the House is voting on a temporary spending bill, a one-week continuing resolution, a resolution which would fund the federal government through April the 15th with another $2 billion in spending cuts. This is they work out the agreed-to now bill for the rest of the year, which according to sources would say would cut about $38 billion in federal spending and avert the first federal shutdown, the government shutdown in 15 years. So this 15-minute vote is on that short-term measure. The House, or rather the Senate passed that a short while ago, and they have gavelled out for the weekend. The Associated Press writes that the Democrats and the White House rebuffed numerous Republican attempts to curtail the reach of the Environmental Protection Agency, and they sidetracked the demand in the bill to deny funds, federal funds, to Planned Parenthood, and the negotiations wrapping up in the Capitol late this evening. Now, after this vote this evening, we expect the House to gavel out and be back early next week, and we, of course, will have live coverage when they return next week. But following the House this evening, I want to let you know that we will show you some of the comments as the deal was announced this evening by Speaker Boehner, and then reaction from the White House from President Obama. And we'll show you also the comments from the Senate floor just a short while ago with the Majority Leader Harry Reid and the Republican Leader Mitch McConnell as the Senate approved the short-term spending measure. And that's what the House is working on now, this 15-minute vote on the continuing resolution through next Friday, cutting $2 billion from current spending.
On this vote, the yeas are 348, the nays are 70, and the motion is adopted. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. For what purpose the gentleman from Oregon rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Energy and Commerce be permitted to file its report to accompany H.R. 1217 at any time through Monday, April 11, 2011.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet at 11 p.m. on Monday next, and further. When the House adjourns on that day, it adjourn to meet at noon on Tuesday, April 12, 2011, for morning hour debate, and 2 p.m. for legislative business.
With objection, so ordered. The chair lays before the House the following enrolled bill.
H.R. 1363, an act making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2011, and for other purposes.
Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business, is a question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal, which the Chair will put de novo. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval to the Journal. As many as are in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. And the Peer and Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And the Journal stands adopted. From Oregon rise.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Question is on the motion to adjourn. As many as are in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 11 p.m. on Monday next.
The U.S. House